Welcome to Under the Microscope.
Brought to you by the Right Credentials Network and your host, Dilsa Bailey, a certified medical services professional for over 20 years. Under the Microscope is where we will examine the many layers of the medical services profession using the acronym SCOPE. That's S-C-O.P.E, which stands for S, Services for Onboarding and Maintaining Providers in a Healthcare Organization. C, credentialing and privileging providers to ensure that they are competent and qualified enough to treat patients safely in a healthcare organization. O, operations and data management, utilizing the healthcare organization's resources efficiently and overseeing the security of its data, promoting patient and provider safety. And P, provider enrollment, affiliating providers with health plans and government payers so that the providers can get paid appropriately. And E, evaluating and monitoring provider performance to ensure patient safety. As a medical services professional in the healthcare industry, our primary focus is to promote patient safety. Though we do a lot, we can't accomplish this on our own. It takes a village to collaborate. That's why this podcast will also include the contributions of our healthcare partners with the same objectives. So stay tuned to hear from those other stakeholders in the healthcare industry too. Joining us, in addition to medical services professionals, will be experts in risk, legal, revenue cycle, quality, and more. So stay tuned. Keep us under the microscope so we can help expose all the little details of the medical services profession. We want you to remember how valuable you are to the healthcare industry. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, drop us a like, and hit the bell so you will know whenever we add the latest episodes. And in the meantime, follow us on LinkedIn or reach out to us at info@therightcredentials.com. In each episode, we will discuss a separate topic related to the letter in the acronym of the moment. But we won't be discussing it alone, as I mentioned. Each episode will feature a guest who will share their expertise, providing advice, training, and support wherever possible. So let's get started with the latest episode. And if you like this one, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and continue to listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Welcome back to Under the Microscope. I'm so glad you returned or stuck around to hear this latest episode, because if you like this one, please hit subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the bell so you'll always hear us, and then listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, okay? So today we're going to talk about the letter O in the acronym SCOPE. And what does the letter O stand for? It stands for Operation and Data Management. Operations and data management. Those are two biggies, right? Because we have to map out operations, infrastructure, foundations, all that good stuff. And we usually start with policies and procedures. That's on the operations side. But on the database management side, we have to identify the database. We want to utilize it effectively to manage our data securely. So there's so many topics to discuss when it comes to operations management and data management. There's just endless topics. But today we're going to talk about the standard operating procedures, or some organizations call them operations manuals or operational manuals. But today we're going to call them SOPs. We're going to talk about standard operating procedures. And who am I going to discuss it with? As I mentioned earlier, I don't do this alone. I usually provide a guest or invite a guest who's a subject matter expert in that specific topic. And today I am happy to have Tammy West as a guest. Welcome, Tammy. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk to you. I know you have plenty of information to share because you are a subject matter expert who has experience in provider enrollment and credentialing. But I'm going to let you tell the audience a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you, Dilsa. I have been in healthcare administration for 27 years, and I've been in the medical staff services profession for 17 years. I started in a health plan as a quality auditor and learned the credentialing process there. Then I worked at a CBO as a CBO manager for 4 years. And then I joined a company as a contractor and worked across the United States for the next 8 years. I'm working with different types of organizations, doing payer enrollment, credentialing, as a manager, a CPO director, and working in the medical staff office. If it involves medical staff services, I did it.
Wow.
Now I am a consultant and also a CVO director.
Awesome. That's why I invited you because you have a very good feel for the whole 9 yards. And I knew you were the right person to ask. So, when I mentioned ask, I have a list of questions for you, and I'm sure everybody is waiting to hear those answers because I know there are a lot of people out there that need your help. So, let's start with the first question. What
Okay.
are the benefits of an SOP? What's the benefit?
Well, there are a lot of benefits for SOPs. Number one, they improve efficiency and they create efficiencies because basically what an SOP is, it's a set of step by step instructions that allow you to perform specific tasks consistently and efficiently. So obviously having SOPs will help to increase your efficiency and your consistency, which means you're going to have a high quality work. It also reduces miscommunication because the information is right there. Anyone can refer to it, and it's going to be the same no matter who looks at it. And it also increases compliance with regulatory guidelines because it's there in writing for you to see, as well as helps in training you and educating us.
All right. Okay. Um, what type of information would you expect in an SOP? And I think you just answered all of that.
Well, actually, there's so as far as the information, the way the SOPs are usually set up, they're kind of more formal. And I did, well, we'll get into it. I differentiate between between operations manual and SOPs because to me the SOPs are more formal. So they may
Okay.
have like purpose statement at the top, and then you've got the actual procedure itself, how to do the actual steps. But then you have defined roles and responsibilities, and it tells you information on like quality measures, like regulatory guidelines, and they're usually signed. Whereas to me, an operations manual is something that is more personal. It's like intended for the people in the department to use, to create, to help them to do their day-to-day jobs. It can have screenshots, it can have charts and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the SOPs are more formalized.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you cleared that up because that's it's every place. Well, I can't say every place. I hate to say that's the way they do it and that's the way they did. I've seen it sort of cross over. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And sometimes the terms are used interchangeably too. Yeah,
Yeah.
so someone may have all of their SOPs in a binder and call it an operations manual, but it's still in the form of SOP,
Right.
so it can be used interchangeably.
Yes. All organizations are unique, aren't they?
You've worked at one organization, you've worked at one
Yes,
organization.
exactly. I like that. I'm going to use that again because that's true. That is so true. Unbelievably true. Okay. Um, when create, well, you just mentioned too that sometimes they have them in a on a binder and they call them the operations manual. But when you're creating an SOP, do you think of that as a redundant activity? I know some people are going, "Oh, we already have policies and procedures. What do we need with an SOP?"
No, I don't because to me a policy is more like a brief overview of maybe like for example, I'm working on our NCQA policies right now. because that's my CDOs that become delegated. And so, for example, the license policy is going to say that we're required to verify providers' medical license or professional license within 120 days of presenting the file back to the organization. Now, the SOP, say you go to the state website, you put in the provider's license number, so it gives you the detail, whereas the policy just kind of gives you a high level overview. So I think SOPs are definitely needed. My policies, I'll present them to NCQA. My internal team, they'll have SOPs or an operational manual that gives them the detail on how to do their job.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. Now, I had a question, and you talked about all the details that are in the SOP. Would you put a workflow in an SOP, or how would you define a workflow? Would
Um,
you see that as an expectation in an SOP, or would that should be over in the operations manual?
That would be an operations manual to me because like I said, the SOP is a more formal document. So I think about the SOP as something that I'm going to present to administration, or I might get the
Okay.
technical director to sign. So I don't want him seeing a whole lot of stuff. He wants, I mean, I want it to be very neat and in the sections and have a signature area. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in the operational manual, I could include the workflow because in the operational manual, I don't mind having flow charts. I don't mind having screenshots because it's intended for my internal team and they can add their own stuff to their copy.
Okay.
I can't make changes to an SOP. That's usually done by the manager.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's a good take on it. I'm glad you brought that up.
Um,
Um,
I'm sorry, I don't think I quite finished answering your question. I kind of got off on a
no,
tangent. But
I go
all
off
of
on
these
tangents a lot, so please, I have
But I
no
got
problem with
to
that.
look at the definition of a workflow, and it said that a workflow is a series of steps or activities needed to complete a task. So it's basically like a procedure. It's like a SOP, but there are different types of workflows that can be used in our business. I think in credentialing, there's three types: process workflow, case workflow, and a project workflow. So the process workflow is the one that we're talking about right now, like when you create the SOP.
Hmm.
The process workflow is where the tasks are predictable and repetitive, like verifying a board certification. You know the exact steps that need to be used. You're going to use the same steps every time. Like for an MD or a DO, you're going to use ABMS or AMA or go directly to the board. Every time
Hmm.
it's done that way. So that's what you call a process, where it's repetitive. Then there's a case workflow where you don't know the path that's required at the start, but you learn it. So, say example, you got a malpractice case, and you don't know until you get all the documentation from the provider what actually happened and how serious it was. And so once you get that documentation, then you can decide, is this a red flag? Is this something that others need to be made aware of? So you start out knowing that you're going to have to make a decision, but you don't know what that decision is going to be yet. And then the last one is the case workflow. No, that was a case workflow. I'm sorry. The last one is a project workflow.
Okay.
They're like similar to actually, they're similar to the process workflows, but they're more flexible because projects, you have to have some flexibility. When you're doing projects as a consultant, we have to be flexible. Sometimes we don't make our deadlines. Sometimes we have to pivot in the middle of a process. So all of those are used in different parts of our business. Yeah, but the process workflow is the one that we're discussing primarily now.
Wow. That's incredible. I like that information too, because I was going to bring up and those workflows. I'm sure there's checklists used in that because I just
Hmm.
recently read a book called The Checklist Manifesto: How to
Oh,
Get Things
wow.
Right. And it was written by a surgeon. It was really captivating. It was written by a surgeon who realized that there was not a specific checklist or workflow in the OR, and that was what was causing some issues with patient safety. So he wrote a whole book about it, and he went out. He's worked with the World Health Organization trying to get checklists, specific checklists in the OR before they touch a patient. That everybody has to go through that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That you know. So that was process, case, and project workflows, right?
Well,
Okay.
process, I think it was, yeah, process, case, and project. Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I'm not even going to ask you about a checklist because that work process,
But yeah,
that workflow.
yeah, the process, yeah, but like, we use checklists a lot in our business, especially in
Yeah.
the credentialing world, credentialing in medical staff office, and even payer enrollment, because you have to make sure that all of the tasks are done. And
Yeah.
human, we make errors, so I think checklists are very important,
Yeah.
whether
Well,
it's electronic or paper, as long as you
yeah,
have
what
steps.
okay,
Mhm.
and one of the things that he reminded us of was that the checklist is not just a to-do list. It's
Right.
also, it has to document vital requirements. So that's what we're doing with our credentialing checklist is we're documenting those vital requirements. And that's the key is documentation. We definitely have to make sure we're documenting everything.
Oh,
That's
yes.
awesome. Yeah. So the SOP, since they're more formal, would you include cross-departmental SOPs like working with HR, onboarding, or with any clinical departments? How would you consider that part of the collaboration process I'm trying to promote? I want everybody to collaborate more because I see a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of silos that I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
we need to get rid of all those silos because we all are interested in patient safety. Um, I was wondering, would that help with the communications and the operations dealing with other departments, and how would you set that up?
Yeah, I definitely think that any department that you work with, that you do need to collaborate. If your duties intertwine in any way, for example, credentialing and payer enrollment, or the medical staff office and the CVO, I definitely think that your policies, your SOPs, your operations manual should include any crosswalk or any intertwining that happens with those two as far as the job responsibilities. And I also think that working with other departments, I always want to educate them on our processes and learn theirs. Because just so you know, like I do, that when we do operational assessments, and we do the interview process, one of the things you always hear is we work in silos. I don't know what that team does. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
that does. So it's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, but you're expected to work as a cohesive organization. And
Right.
so that's hard to do when you don't know the other parts. Like you don't know the end to end process. You only know your little part. So yeah, I definitely believe in collaboration with other teams. I think it also encourages teamwork. It gives you more appreciation for other people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's a great educational tool as well.
Yes, it is. It is. So, would you consider using the SOP as a training tool for all those different departments? Not just your department, but the other departments could do you think that would be valuable to have training sessions for everybody?
I do. I really think that I think it would be valuable for other departments to know what your department does. So whether it's looking at your SOPs or maybe having like quarterly meetings and everybody or someone gets to tell monthly meetings, like give a 5 minute elevator speech on what their department does, just so other departments are familiar and are aware. And I would definitely consider using SOPs for delegation audits because, as I said, it's more formal. So they would expect to see like nice, pretty policies or processes if you wanted to provide those. I would not provide an operations manual if I was doing a delegation audit because again, they want to see your policies. They don't really need to know the day-to-day minutia of what you do, and that
Hmm.
manual is going to be much more detailed. It's going to have screenshots. It might have some stuff written in the margin.
Yeah. All the dirty little details. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Um, so let's see. Trying to think of, I'm trying to look at my questions because you have answered a lot of them. Like I said, you were the SME. You were very, yeah. Um, so training your team on the SOPs, do you think that would help with retention or performance if they had an SOP, or would you prefer the operations manual, or what do you think in terms of
I like
your
both.
staff and education? Yeah.
I like both. I think it depends on the person. And the reason I say that, I'm a visual learner. So to me, the operations manual would be more beneficial because I can have print screens. So I can look in the credentialing software. I can look on the screen on the manual and be like, yep, this is a page and it's got a little arrow pointing right where I need to put the information. So that's very helpful to me. I'm a hands-on learner and I'm a visual learner. So if I see it, I can do it. If I read it, it may take me a little bit longer to figure out. I love to read, and when I read books for pleasure, I don't use pictures. But when I'm reading something for work, I want to make sure that I get it right and that I fully understand it. I like to see the pictures. But some people learn better with just like a straight step by step. Step
Hmm.
one, do this. Step two, do this. Step three, do this, and they don't need the pictures. So it depends on the person and
Yeah.
which way they learn best.
Well, I'm like you. I visualize even when I'm reading a book. Well, we
Yeah,
all
in my
visualize
head,
that.
I see
Yeah.
it unfold in my
But when
head.
it's like good that regulations and all that stuff, it's like, okay, how does that work? How does that fit here? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on that one. Now, a lot of organizations that are probably a lot of medical staff services, not medical staff services, but medical services professionals that are listening to us may not have um, an SOP in place right now. What's your advice on how to get started, and what would be their selling points to their department leaders to say, hey, we need this?
The selling point is that it's the best way to educate the department and make sure that people are being told the same thing consistently and correctly. Because if you've got it and if you've got a subject matter expert in your department, writing it down, not just putting it in the SOP, but also educating the staff on it and making sure everybody understands it. So creating the SOP, then training people on the correct way to do it. And you're creating other subject matter experts. You're making sure everybody does things the same way every time. And so you're creating that consistency and that efficiency because once everybody's doing things the same way, they'll become faster and more and have higher quality work.
Yeah, that's right. They will. That consistency is the key word too. It's like everybody has to do it exactly the same way in order for us to consistently meet all of our regulators and accreditors and delegating entities and all that good stuff.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's what they want to see is consistency.
Hmm. Well, Tammy, you have provided so much information. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Um, Again, I just want to kind of stress the importance of, I think, educating ourselves on not just our little department or our little team, but making sure that we know how we fit in that big cog, how our job affects other departments and how other departments affect our job. And I think that makes us more efficient once we realize that. The more organizations um, do that kind of cross training between the teams, I think the more efficient they'll become, and the more people will appreciate their coworkers.
Wow. Yes, I agree. Thank you. Now, I know everybody, there's quite a few people probably sitting there going, how can I get her to help me? What is your contact information? How would you like for people to reach out to you if they need help?
You can reach me on LinkedIn. I am up there. I've got a lot of followers. I've got over 3,000 followers, and most of them are in the medical service or medical staff professionals. So I might be on your friend list already or your connections already.
I love LinkedIn.
Me too. Me too. So
Wow.
that's the way to reach me.
Well, I'm sure that the medical services professionals that were listening and any of our healthcare partners learned a lot because I did. I hadn't even thought about the differences between the SOPs and the operational manuals because, again, every organization is unique and it's
Yeah.
been termed differently everywhere that I've been. But but you gave me a new perspective to look at it as, and I probably should have thought of that a long time ago, but you learn something new every day,
Yeah. And like you
right?
said, it depends on where you're at. That's just one woman's opinion.
Well, I liked your opinion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, so thank you for joining me, Tammy. Thank you for sharing the information. And listeners, we would love to get your feedback. We want to hear from you, and we want you to remember Tammy West. She's a SME and she's out there to help. And I want you to remember that if you're watching us on YouTube, to hit subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell, and share this podcast, share this information with other medical services professionals and with your healthcare partners because we want our healthcare partners to know how valuable the medical services profession is. And we also want them to know that we're working hand in hand toward patient safety. That's the goal, is to make sure all the patients that are being treated under our organization's name, that they are being treated appropriately and that we are contributing by making sure that those providers are qualified and competent. And that's what our whole lives are about, because that's why we do what we do. Now, thank you for joining us on this episode. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And I want to thank you again, Tammy, for joining us and giving us such great information. Have a great evening, night, day, whatever time you're watching this, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again, Tammy.
You're welcome.
If you like this one, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and continue to listen to us on your favorite podcast platform.